Good afternoon and happy Friday. We are excited. We're very excited to have a webinar. This is one of our spring scholarship webinars. This particular program is actually very near and dear because I've had several students that have not only gotten the scholarship, but have gotten connected to this amazing network. We are here today with Angela Ortiz, who represents the Chicana Latina Foundation. She's going to talk about the scholarship, which is actually a lot more than a scholarship. It is a leadership program and a network that I think lasts far beyond simply the time that students are receiving the scholarship. So we're going to hear from her, hear about the program, what it consists of, and then of course what you can do if you're thinking about applying to the upcoming cohort and how to prepare your application so you'll get noticed. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for having me and for putting on helping us put this workshop together. I believe it's so important to get the word out and also just be open to offering any suggestions, any advice. Maybe it's the first time you've heard about CLF, so it's how can we really get you connected and so that you learn about us. So in the chat, I put a sign-in sheet. So if you have a moment to let us know, where you're coming from, just again, it's really helpful for us so we know who's coming to these workshops. So thank you, you can do that. I'll go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. So just really quickly, I wanted to do like a breakdown of what we'll be covering today. So we'll go over CLF and its mission. So like I mentioned, CLF is an organization, but we want to make sure that you know who we are. You learn a little bit about our core values and why we do what we do. We'll go over the program overview, which entails the Leadership Institute and scholarship. So they go together. So I want to make sure that we touch on those as well. I'll go over the application eligibility. So how are you eligible? And if there's any questions regarding that. I'll also cover the letter of recommendation, which is one of the requirements this year. I'll also cover the personal insight questions, and I'll have some time at the end for any questions that you may have. So who we are, Chicana Latina Foundation is a nonprofit organization located in Northern California. We're located in Burlingame, right in San Mateo County, and we've actually been around for 45 years. So this is our 45th year of doing what we do, which is really promoting the professional and leadership development of Latinas. And the way that we do that is through first easing the financial burden. So our program issues a scholarship that in hope helps students really finish their college education, right? With pursuing higher ed, there's a lot of financial obstacles that arise. So we want to make sure that we're contributing to helping ease that burden that comes along with that. We also cultivate leadership. So we have a Leadership Institute program that came around in 2006 because we realized that there was a need for more than just funding, but for the development of really leaders in our community. So that's really important to who we are. We do this by lifting up our culture. So we really focus on the identity of being Chicana Latina. So making sure that we address, what like cultura cura, at the same time, the ways in which cultura can harm us and how we can really dismantle those systems. So that's really important for us. And, we always focus on culture. And lastly, we really hope to spark civic engagement. We really hope that the alumnus who come out of our program are motivated to really create positive social change. So they do this through being involved with the community. And when I say community, I mean it can be like a larger or smaller, sense. So it can be your family, your friend circles, even, organizations that you're a part of. So really, again, honing in on that. So our core values, you'll hear me say building community a lot today, and it's really, really core to who we are, I would say. A lot of our events and workshops really revolve around building community and making sure that we really support one another in our experiences and really make sure we validate each other. So that is really, again, we're really committed to building that. We're also committed to building, cultivating leaders. So again, just making sure that all of our programming is in the effort to really invest and grow conscientious leaders who will go out and create change. And lastly, equity in education. So we're really committed to providing holistic material to aid in the emotional and spiritual growth of our students, in which, sometimes it feels like higher education may sometimes, um, force us to kind of not focus on that. So we want to make sure that we're really celebrating that within our space. So our program overview, which is what the opportunity is. So in the past, we actually used to refer to it as a scholarship program. And in recent years, we really decided to focus it kind of like calling it a program, because it's two parts. So every year, CLF awards 40 to 45 recipients to be part of the Leadership and Scholarship Program. And what this really means is that the awardees will attend a Leadership Institute session, which happens in the fall and in the spring of the academic year. So when you're applying, it's essentially a year-long commitment that you'll be with CLF. So it is from August 2023 and February 2024. Along with that, you will receive a scholarship of $1,500, which is split into two payments. So the scholarship itself goes to you. We don't send it to your university. We understand that, school isn't the only expense. There's food, there's housing. So we want to make sure that you have the discretion to really, spend the scholarship as needed. You'll also be invited to attend the annual award dinner, which happens in January. So we actually just finished preparing for the 2022 cohort who had their celebration in January. So you'll be invited, where the community comes together to really celebrate you. And then lastly, awardees will act as a CLF ambassador for 10 hours during the 2024 application cycle by completing outreach on their campuses. So that sounds scary, but ultimately it's really just doing this. So it's really creating a workshop to really spread the word about the opportunity. So we really want to make sure that we're really paying it forward. And a lot of what we do is really meant to really build our skills. So it allows our recipients to practice public speaking, practice organizing a workshop, getting other organizations involved. So it's really important part of that requirement. So you've been hearing Leadership Institute, and you may be wondering, what is that and what am I going to learn? And a lot of what we've heard in the past is that the word Leadership Institute can sometimes bring themes of, resume building and cover letters, and what we would typically associate with, just development. And what we really wanted to focus our program is really centering our stories and experiences and narratives. So the core of what the Leadership Institute teaches is how to embrace your authentic self. And we do this in many ways. We do this by bringing presenters who are on their journey, of reclaiming their stories, poets, organizers who are doing the work in the community and who are ultimately centering their experience to motivate their work. So we really want to make sure that the folks that we bring in are really aligned with our values and our mission, to make sure that the students who are part of the program really, grab something from them and are able to use that to really, for them to embrace their stories. So each year, all the recipients who are selected that year gather for a weekend. So for example, here we have August 4th through the 6th, which will be this year. And all of them will gather at the Marin Headlands, so right across Golden Gate Bridge. There's a beautiful retreat center that is right by the ocean, and we bring all the members together, and we just participate in community building. So we provide housing and food for that weekend, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's so important, so I want to make sure that we touch on that, because as Tiffany mentioned, this is something that's so unique to our program. There's a lot of scholarships out there that will give you money and will say, here you go, good luck, and that will be it. So we want to make sure that we're continuing the development of our students. So the Leadership Institute really serves to be that touch point. So this is here building community and resiliency. So CLF facilitates conversations, again, with outside presenters. This was actually this was last year. So in August, we were able to come back together after being virtual for 2 years. So this was last year. We were able to bring in some, dancers, some presenters who really brought in our indigenous side. So it was really beautiful, and I wanted to make sure to include some pictures there. Sorry about the dog barking, if you can hear that. I also wanted to cover eligibility. So one of the first one is to self-identify as Chicana and or Latina. So for this one, we don't ask for any sort of documentation. If you identify as Chicana and or Latina, you're more than welcome to apply. We really want to make sure that we place some emphasis on this one because a lot of our programming does focus on that identity and how we all relate to that. So we always want to make sure that this program is giving you something and that you're able to grab something from the program and it's worth your time, I would say. So this is why we have that requirement. For point number 2, be enrolled in a university or community college in one of the following counties. So here we have, Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Monterey, Napa, Sacramento, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Solano, San Francisco, Sonoma, or Yolo. And this also applies to transfer students. The one thing I will say is there has been flexibility on this requirement. So for instance, if you're attending a school in Southern California, perhaps out of state, and you're still really interested in applying, you're more than welcome to, with the understanding that if you are selected, you would have to commit to being here in person for the Leadership Institute sessions. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we have this requirement, because with having these sessions in Northern California, and if you're not in the area, that may bring some transportation costs, some housing costs that maybe you're not able to do. So again, this is one of the reasons why we have it. But again, if you're interested in applying, with that understanding that you may have to, commit to being in person here. For point number 3, have lived at least 2 years in one of the counties above. So just again, wanting to make sure that you have some housing available for certain dates so that it doesn't bring any other financial burdens on your part. And for this one, I would say again, we don't check. So if you've only lived here for a year, a couple of months, it's totally fine. We just again want to make sure that you're there for the Leadership Institute sessions. And lastly, past awardees who have been selected in the past, we ask that you wait at least 4 years before reapplying. And one of the reasons for this is that the idea is that you would apply at a different level. So for instance, if you got the scholarship when you were an undergrad and now you're in a master's program, a PhD program, the idea is that you would come back and apply. So that is a little bit of that. But if, for instance, you're 3 years or 2 years, you can always reach out to the staff and we can figure that out. So for undergraduate students, you must be enrolled as a full-time student or when applying. So for some colleges, it's 12 units, others is 13. So whatever is defined by your university. And this applies to the academic year of fall 2023 and spring 2024. So when we refer to academic year, it's both terms. So if, for instance, you're graduating in fall 2023, you wouldn't be eligible since you wouldn't be enrolled in spring 2024. So we want to make sure that it's the full year. And this also applies to transfer students. Another point is you have to have completed at least 12 units after high school graduation. So we have this here because sometimes we'll have students who have earned college credit through a dual enrollment program at their high school. And in that case, they did get credit, but we want to make sure that they have graduated high school. And the reason for this is that we want to make sure that folks that are in the program have been touched by a higher education system. And ultimately, there's some liability there. So we want to make sure that, folks are out of high school. And lastly, have a GPA of a 2.0. For graduate students, you just have to be enrolled as a graduate or professional student or have been accepted into a program for the fall 2023 and spring 2024 academic year. There's some exceptions here with, being part-time and full-time. With being a graduate student, there's also like internships. So there's an understanding there. And the GPA is a little higher here. It is a 2.7 for college coursework. And then for graduate students, they will be required to submit a resume or CV as part of their application. So how to, access the application, how to get started if you're interested. So you can go to our website, which is chicanalatina.org. And right in the first page, you'll see scholarship application. And you want to go ahead and click on that. And once you do so, you'll go ahead and create an account. You'll go ahead and answer all the pre-qualification questions. So if you fit all the eligibility, please answer yes to all of them. Because if you don't, then it will actually tell you that you're not eligible to apply. So make sure you answer yes. After that, you'll just enter your information, your school details. You'll answer 5 personal insight questions. And then you'll submit your current college transcripts for all the colleges you attended. So if, for instance, if you're at a community college and you're attending 2, you might want to upload both, right? Since you're at 2 colleges. If you are transferring and you only have your community college, you would only submit that one. And then you would, the system will ask you for a recommender. So what you'll do is you'll only have to provide a name and email address. And you don't have to upload anything for them. They will receive a link with an invitation for them to fill out a letter of recommendation on your part. So just the name and email would be required for that part. All applications must be submitted online by March 31st. And then the letter of recommendation is actually due a week after on the 7th. And this is just to account for some, reminders and getting folks to really submit the letter. So for the letter of recommendation, this year we decided that only one letter would be required. And what we found in the past was that sometimes a letter from a professor wasn't necessarily the best letter because the relationship wasn't really strong. A professor has over 500 students that are trying to get letters of recommendation. So it wasn't serving its purpose, I would say. So what we decided was that we would give the student the ability to really select someone who could really speak to who they are. You might be part of an organization, a campus org. You're working with someone very close on research who can really speak to your ability. So we wanted to give you that discretion in terms of selecting someone, again, who can really, support your application. So when deciding who to select, select someone who can speak to your civic and community involvement, your leadership qualities, academic achievement, and personal characteristics. Some tips for, that we recommend as you ask for a letter of recommendation is that you ask for your letter as soon as possible. So if you leave here today and you say, I think I want to apply. If that's what you decide that, you want to think about 2 people who can write you a letter. You want to ask the first person and say, you ask them and they can't, they're at capacity, then you can reach out to the second person. In the past, what we realized, and I would say historically what we see, is that a student will submit their application on the 31st, and then the letter of recommendation never comes in. So what happens in that case is that the application isn't read anymore because it's not a complete application. There's no letter of recommendation attached. So in order to avoid, that happening to you, we always recommend that in your portal, you're actually able to see if they've uploaded their letter. So if you don't see 100% in that section, that means that they haven't uploaded a letter. So say you submit your application on March 31st at 11:59, p.m. right on the dot, and you see that there's not 100% in that request section. Send your recommender a friendly reminder. Hey, just want to remind you it's due on the 7th. Is there something I can do to help you? Can I provide you with my resume? So again, just make it a little easier for them to support your application. So just like I mentioned, right, when you ask, provide a copy of your resume. Maybe they know you to a certain degree, but they don't know your academic achievement. Maybe they know your leadership qualities, but haven't really been with you in the classroom to talk about your academic achievement. So provide them with some context of more of who you are, just to help them again write a good letter for you. Just like I mentioned, send follow-up reminders. I wouldn't say every day. I would do it, maybe like one a week before, one the day before. Maybe you have a recommender who's on it and submitted it right away. So I hope that's the case. But if it's not, again, just send them a friendly reminder. And lastly, just make sure to send them a personal thank you. One of the biggest reasons for having this is that it builds a skill. At some point in our lives, we will have to ask for a letter of recommendation, and it is a daunting task sometimes because it requires folks to talk about you. And sometimes, again, asking for that can be hard. So we want to make sure that what we're doing really builds a skill. So continuing to really make sure that you're building good connection with folks and you're able to build that rapport to continue supporting you in the future. Maybe there's another scholarship opportunity that they can help you support by providing another letter, the same letter perhaps, right? So again, just building that rapport with your network is always important. So these are the personal insight questions. There is a total of 5, and they're fairly short. It is 200 to 250 words. And they are all very, I would say, a little open-ended, but they're specific as well. So here we have the first one being, write about something you have done or an accomplishment in your life of which you are particularly proud of. So one of the questions that we always get for this one is, did I have to win an award? Did I have to be recognized for it to be considered an accomplishment? And the answer is no. A lot of us have our own definition of what an accomplishment is. We always have, folks talking about the ways in which they adjusted to migrating at a young age, maybe learning English, at an older age, right? So I would definitely say that it doesn't have to be merit-based. It is what you really consider an accomplishment. When you're thinking about this question, just make sure to discuss how the accomplishment really inspired you to continue your higher education journey, right? Why does this make you proud? And why has it really encouraged you to move forward? Question number 2, describe any prior experiences working with community members as part of a team and or leading activities for community benefit. So we really want to see how you have contributed or demonstrated a commitment to the Latinx community. It doesn't have to be like you were the leader of something. You can be part of a team again. We want to make sure that you can talk about your campus involvement, perhaps. Maybe you're doing local volunteer work, any other activity where you've really given back to your community. So I would definitely encourage you to bring out those experiences. Question number 3 is, at CLF, we believe that lived experiences and personal assets, such as the ability to speak 2 languages, navigating difficult situations, and remaining positive despite adversity, can be used to strengthen our communities. Please describe a lived experience and or personal asset that you can use to strengthen our communities. So again, making sure to describe how your lived experience has really influenced your desire to continue working towards your goals. Again, we have some examples here of, speaking 2 languages. How have you really been resilient, and how has that really impacted where you want to go in the future? Question number 4 is, imagine yourself 10 years from now. What roles will you play, and how will you impact issues facing Latinas? Please include the issues you want to impact the most. So for this one, sometimes it's a little easier for folks because sometimes our major correlates to what we want to do in the future. So for instance, folks go into health, folks go into public policy because they want to make change in immigration, maybe nutrition in the Latinx community, right? So That's one of the ways that you could approach this question is, why are you studying? Perhaps you're not studying it, but you're involved with it outside of school. So it's, why are you involved in that way? What kind of changes do you see in the future? Dream. We encourage you to dream. Something I always say is that for CLF, we always hope that there won't be a need for Chicana Latina Foundation because there'll be enough funding for all of our students to go to school, right? They won't need to apply for scholarship because they'll have money to attend school. So we want to hear about that. We want to hear about the ways in which you want to create that future for the community. Question number 5 is write about your personal background and important details about your life that you would like to share with us. This is a small bio to allow us to get to know you better. So a lot of the other questions were really focused. So this one's, again, open-ended. Is there something that we didn't ask that you want to let us know? Maybe there is something that, again, is really unique to who you are that you want to make sure to include. So make sure to discuss who you are, where and how you got to where you are right now, and what are your values? How can CLF support you in that journey to, again, go where you want to be? So just some tips. On our website, we actually have a lot of worksheets and that can help you really brainstorm through the personal insight questions. So it really breaks down the question in terms of what the themes are. So again, who you are, your family, community. It really helps you kind of do like word vomit. So it helps you just jot down ideas so that you can really focus them, so that you're answering the question, and ultimately organizing your ideas in terms of, maybe this didn't necessarily answer the first question, but it fits really well with the question number 3. So it's, again, really helping you organize your themes and your ideas into how you can answer the question best. You want to make sure to ask yourself, does your response answer the question? Did you stay within the limits? So this is important because the system actually will no longer save if you've gone over the 250 words. So what I always recommend is that you write on a separate Word doc, and then if once you're done with your editing and that's what you're going to submit, you go ahead and move that over to the application, just in case if anything happens, you have your copy aside from the application portal. And lastly, again, just making sure that it reads clearly. We don't want the reader to kind of have to assume what you mean when you're writing. So the review process. So once the applications are due, we'll have a final number on the 7th. So on the 7th, we'll know the amount of complete applications because, again, all the letters of recommendations will be in by then. After that, the applications will be scored and reviewed by community volunteers through the end of April and beginning of May. And then the semi-finalists will be notified mid-May and will be invited to participate in an in-person interview in early June. One thing I will say here is that we actually really bring in the community for the application process. We train the volunteers, so we don't give them your application and say, here, read it and score it. We actually really train them to read from a holistic perspective. So we really want to make sure that they understand who the applicants are. That means that they have to understand that our applicants tend to be first generation. They tend to be reentry students. Maybe they're English language learners. So again, we really want to make sure that the community knows who they're scoring. And one example that we do is that, for instance, if they look at a GPA and it's a lower GPA, right? But then they read the personal insight questions and they see that maybe they had a really hard adjustment to their first year of college. Maybe some things were going on that really impacted their, academic trajectory. So it's being able to really look at the person as a whole, rather than just the GPA, or rather just the personal insight questions. Along with that, the letter of recommendation really, again, helps us learn more about you. We tend to not talk about ourselves a lot. I think it's really hard for us to talk about ourselves. So the letter recommendations offer an additional way for us to learn more about you. Maybe there's something you didn't mention and your recommender was like, whoa, let me write more about this, right? So again, it's really important. So the semi-finalist interview. So approximately 1 out of 4 applicants will be selected to be interviewed. So we select around 65 students to be interviewed, and with a total of 40 to 45 being selected for the final award. The interview panel consists of 2 to 3 volunteers. So as you realize, volunteers are included really heavily in our process. And the interviewers are mostly Latinx who are educated in the respective fields and who again really believe in the mission of CLF. With the help of the volunteers, they make the recommendations to the board for final selection. So once all the applicants leave, all the interviewers talk amongst their panel of who they interviewed, and they make the recommendations to the board in terms of who is the best fit for the program. This process takes a while. We give them a set amount of time, and every year they come back and they can't make a decision because it's so hard for them. And we really wish that we could give everyone a scholarship. And every year, again, they always talk about how hard it is to really, recommend folks because everyone deserves it. And I just wanted, again, to make sure that I point out that why the community is so involved. We really believe that the community has a stake in the leaders that CLF produces. So we really want to make sure that they're a part of that decision. And they know who CLF is, so we want to make sure that they see how you fit with CLF. So where to get started? I just, rambled a lot of information, and I want to make sure you have time to digest, but also see if you're interested in applying. So if you are interested in applying, as I mentioned on our website, let me go to it here. On our website, if you go to programs and then you go to scholarships, you'll see 2023 application resources. What we've done is we've really tried to provide enough resources for you to really go through the application. So the first one being an action plan. So even if you decide that, this is not the opportunity for you, but there's other scholarships out there that you're thinking about applying to, this action plan really just lays out deadlines, some action items, so you can tailor it as needed as you're, applying to the scholarship or other scholarship opportunities. You have the questions, so if you want to take a look at the questions, deconstruct the question, you're more than welcome to do so. There's also a brainstorming worksheet. So again, it just really breaks down the themes so that you can jot down your ideas and begin to really organize your thoughts. There are some tips for asking for letters of recommendation. So there's actually a template in there that you can just copy and paste. And that really helps you kind of begin the outline of your email to your potential recommender. Please let your recommender know beforehand. Don't just put their email in and then kind of hope that they'll do it. Please let them know beforehand, because if you ever get a suspicious link from somewhere, I would delete it, so if the student doesn't tell me that, I'm going to get a link to an application and they'll be, asked to submit a letter, I would delete the email, right? So just let them know beforehand to avoid any confusion. If they agreed and they haven't received it, encourage them to check their spam. So yeah, there's some tips there for you to navigate that process. We have some frequently asked questions. So as questions come into me, I tend to upload this Word document. And because maybe the question is very common and I want to make sure that you can just click on it and see if your question has been asked before. We have some more workshops, and then I'll also be hosting more open forums. So essentially I will just open a Zoom, and if any folks have any questions about a particular question, a particular clarification, that'll be the space to do so. If these don't work for you, an email works perfectly fine as well. I know sometimes talking through things can help a little bit, so I want to make sure that's an option. So more dates will be coming as the application is almost due in March. So that's an eye out for that. So those are some resources that we have. So lastly, again, I just wanted to put the deadline again, so March 31st, and then the recommender deadline is the 7th, which is a week after. And with that, I will open it up for any questions that came up. Let's see here.
So feel free to type in any questions, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, now is the time. Because as you can see, this is an amazing opportunity, network. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this program is that you're really looking at the student holistically. You're not, looking at, okay, what's their GPA? Are they president of a club? Are they, you're more focused on who this person is and what they bring to the table, and really, helping students recognize their potential. I mean, I think that having students do things like, reflect on where you see yourself in 10 years, helping them to, craft a bio, even if let's say you don't, for whatever reason, get this, I think that experience of applying in and of itself is going to get students tools to understand all that they bring to the table. So I love that.
You hit it right on the nail. And with that, I also want to mention that, we're going to get applicants who have an amazing GPA, who have probably been involved in every little thing. And that's awesome. That's amazing. We want to see that. But also we understand that not everyone is on that, it has that experience yet, So when we look at the person, we look at what is that potential? How can being part of a community with other individuals help them grow? Maybe encourage, maybe they're at a community college. How does that encourage them to want to pursue a graduate program? So it's continuing that knowledge sharing. The cohort itself is very diverse. We don't have folks who are all, I would say, and they're reentry students, right? They're mothers, they're undocumented, they are queer. So whenever we're looking at the makeup of the cohort, we look at those different things because we don't want everyone to have the same identity, because there's beauty in sharing my experience with you. So that is what we do as well with looking at different majors in schools. So we don't want, we get a lot of applicants from UC Berkeley, I will put that out there. And, awesome, but we don't want, 15 of them being from UC Berkeley, because, that's already an experience that they share. So we like to take from community college and, Sacramento, so just making sure that we're being really diverse in the selection of the cohort. And again, we have students who are reentry, students who are older and who come back and are learning from our younger recipients. So it's I wanted to make sure to make that a little clear, because I think that sometimes we get caught up on, well, who is the perfect applicant, who will get the scholarship. And that's why it's very hard for our volunteers, because everyone is so deserving. Everyone's story is so unique. And when we look at that makeup, it's taking into account all those different identities that you have. One thing that I didn't share that I will share is that, once your year with CLF has been completed, I would say that's not the end of it. You're welcome to be part of our alumni association that we have. So it's everyone who's been part of the program, from our executive director who got the scholarship in 1993, so it's older folks who are coming back and offering mentorship and just community, getting together, and how can we share knowledge. So so you're, after being part of the program, you get invited to be part of the association.
We have a question from Karina. So Karina is asking, what is expected of the students throughout the period of the program?
Awesome, great question. So but aside from the Leadership Institute, so that is one of the biggest components, I would say, is that it's the commitment. Um, it is such a crucial part of the program that we really want to make sure that folks really are part of that. Aside from that, and that so the first time that happens is in the summer. So folks usually aren't back in school yet. So that's kind of the reason why we have it during that time, is so that you're able to attend. So there's that one. And then in December, there is just a workshop that kind of goes that covers the outreach for the scholarship. And then in February, you have the final Leadership Institute. So there really isn't much, I would say, expectations in terms of, you know, being part of check-ins or stuff like that. We do want to do them, but make them optional, because we don't want, again, you have a lot going on. CLF doesn't want to add another stress to you. So a lot, just aside from the Leadership Institute sessions, there isn't any other kind of requirements for that.
Great.
Mhm.
I have a question. So, given the past 2 years, with pandemic and remote, have you seen a decline in the number of applications?
Yes. So in 2020 and 2020 and 2021, what we saw was that a lot of folks had an issue with getting letters of recommendation.
Mhm.
And to the point where actually last year we um, got rid of the requirement, actually. And what we saw was that it was just really hard to going back from being virtual, and then now some schools are doing hybrid. It was still very difficult for folks to build a connection with their professors. So we decided to get rid of that requirement. And as soon as we did, applications really skyrocketed. So this year, when we were thinking about bringing it back, or kind of, what do we do to meet the students where they are, where they need us to be? We really wanted to make sure that we were intentional about why we were asking for the letter of recommendation. And again, we brought it back with modifications, right? You don't have to ask a professor. You can ask a community member. So again, making sure that we were being flexible in that part, but also being true to why we're asking for it. Well, ultimately, right? We want folks who are really committed to the mission, committed to growing as individuals. So we did see a decline, I would say, but I would say that is, sometimes it's more applications than, um, how do I say this? There was a lot of applications, but it still made the decision very hard, just to very narrow it down to the 40 to 45. And actually, this 2022 was 45. In the past, we were at 30. So we're continuing to increase the amount of recipients that we're giving, the program to, because there's a big need for it. And yeah, so we're at a 50% increase of how much funding we're giving. And we're hoping to continue that for the next years until we're able to reach 50, to double our impact for sure.
That's wonderful. So definitely, those of you that are on the call today, or those of you that, watch this after the fact, please tell your friends. Please tell your friends that are, good candidates for this program. Because one of the things I really, really appreciate is that you're building a cohort. And I love that you're building a cohort, because it's not just about, okay, this person has, a high GPA, or this person has, these awards and honors. You're building a cohort. And I think that that richness of the cohort is probably why you have such a robust alumni association. And I've had, a lot of professionals the colleagues that are alumni, and it's just such a great organization. And so I love seeing it thrive, and I love the fact that it's growing, and And I think that, where do I see in 10 years? Maybe it's going to be 100, I mean, I think that's very well possible. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I would encourage folks to share out the opportunity. It's always helpful for folks to share knowledge, and share resources. So that's why we really, offered the resources, because even if you don't apply to CLF, we hope that they can help you with any other opportunity that's out there. And we hope to continue building programming through CLF, and we have some stuff in the works. So we'll be sharing more about that. But if you have any other questions that come up, I can put my email in the chat, so you can reach out. And I'm glued to my email these days, so I will go ahead and answer very quickly. But if there's any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
I think Maria had a question. Oh, she's already thinking like a leader. This is a good question. I wanted to ask, how can we translate the knowledge from the program to high school students and eventually help them to also apply?
Great question. And what we've actually done a couple years ago, and we haven't done it recently, is we used to give this workshop to high school students actually, but we would do a writing workshop with the personal insight questions. We would really break down the question, because a lot of the questions that are out there for scholarships are very similar. And I think a lot of our questions really focused on resiliency and using the ways in which we really use these, adversity, and how we've really conquered, and it's used that to really motivate us to pursue higher education. So we've done these workshops for high school students in terms of how to apply for scholarships, so that once they're in college, they could apply to CLF. But we know that even before that, there's a lot of scholarships available to high school students. So yeah, that is what we used to do, and we've really haven't done that so lately, as of lately, just because of staffing, and also it's a little harder with the pandemic getting in schools. And as you realize, being virtual is kind of the way things are done now. So yeah, that's one of the ways I would say is really, again, breaking down how to really tell their story in the way that they're proud of it, not necessarily selling their trauma to us, I would say. It's really, again, how to they embrace their narrative. And that is what CLF is about, is really embracing your authentic self. So yeah, that's what I will say for that one.
I love that. So embracing your story. And I also love the fact that, because basically what we're hearing is that, it's storytelling. It's telling your story. It's owning your narrative, and not so much as like, oh, what do we think they want to hear, but like, what is it that you want to tell them, right? What is it you want the volunteers to know about you, and what you will bring to the cohort? And I think that, all of you that are on the call today, I hope that you definitely apply, and I hope that you, regardless of the outcome, I hope that you take that to heart, owning your narrative, and really, the fact that you're on this call, that you're seeking opportunities, that you're reaching out. There's organizations, there's professionals, there's people that want to help the next generation and want to support. And I think that that's what I love about organizations like CLF, is the goal is to reach back. And you, as all of you, become professionals. And once you're in a position, you'll do the same thing. And I love that. It's paying it forward. Great. Well, thank you so much. We'll go ahead, and I think we are at time if no one else has any other questions. We have some links. We have some links in the chat. And we will share the recording with folks that were on today's call. And yeah, if you have any questions at all, you can email Angela, and we'll share her email. And this was an amazing talk today, and I'm really excited. And if you do, if you're on the call today, or if you're watching this and you get selected, let us know. We would love to, I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tiffany, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I look forward to seeing your name on the application portal.
Thanks again.
I think I have to stop it,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I think so. I think it's on the